What up, gamers? Today we're going to be finally looking into the Witherhoard exotic grenade launcher that can be acquired from the season pass for this season of arrivals. If you watched my Ruinous Effigy video, you'll know that I stated that this season has brought us two very creative, if not the most creative, exotics within Destiny 2. And the Witherhoard is no exception, as it's basically a blight launcher. Remember the blights? The big black balls floating in the sky that spawn and take over the Dreaming City every few weeks or so? Well, Bungie made it to where you could shoot one directly out of a cannon. It's a small, handheld cannon, but nonetheless, I must say it's a very versatile weapon that can be used not only on mobs, but bosses as well. But you're here for the numbers, so let's get into it. First off, let's go over the perks of our newly found love of a grenade launcher. Beginning of the lineup, we have Countermass, which gives this GL great control over recoil, increases stability, and provides great handling on the draw. Next is Black Powder, which apparently makes this weapon's explosives more effective and slightly increases the blast radius. Now, although not your typical GL, Witherhoard does have a blast radius, but it's still quite small compared to the radius of another GL, like say the Mountaintop. It does do a good deal of damage when directly hitting the ground near an enemy, but it significantly drops even at 2 meters out from the target. The good thing is, this doesn't hurt the use of this weapon due to its exotic perk Primeval's Torment, which states, projectiles fired by this weapon blight the target or nearby area on impact. And if you impact the ground with this blight, it'll take up probably about a 5-meter radius, making it great for mobs as you can just stand within the pool and bait rank and file enemies into their demise. It's also important to note that this is one of the few grenade launchers where you can't accidentally kill yourself like with, say, another well-known grenade launcher that's getting sunsetted. I'm sure I'm not the only one who could attest to this. But regardless of your past mistakes, I can assure you this grenade launcher is much friendlier to its user. That's another story though if you're on the other end of it. Now on to the next perk that makes the Primeval's Torment trait more potent, we have Break the Bank, which states blighted targets take damage over time and blight the nearby area on death. And this is where the Witherhoard differs from your normal GL like the Mountaintop or Swarm and showcases more traits like the Anarchy and where it can implement tick damage. So basically there are two ways in which the Witherhoard can be used. You can either fire it upon the ground and damage targets that walk into the pool of blight, or you can shoot it directly into the enemy to where they consume the blight and it initiates tick damage from within. Now in both cases you're going to implement direct impact damage to your target, but when the blight is consumed, if the enemy's health is depleted before the tick timer ends, then a pool of blight will fall to the ground where that target was consumed, allowing it to do additional damage to any other enemies unlucky enough to step into the awaiting blight pool. And then we have the last perk, which isn't that important, is Composite Stock, which further enhances stability and handling speed for this weapon. Now before we get into the numbers on whether or not hitting an enemy directly or creating a pool of blight are the best options, I want to tell you that you'll want to acquire this exotic's catalyst. During this season of arrivals, you can acquire this catalyst quest at Banshee out at the tower, and although it's a little bit of a grind to complete, once applied you get not only increased handling speed, which basically gives the weapon quick draw, but you'll also provide the Witherhoard with auto-loading holster, which I can already tell you isn't faster than its base reload speed, but it's a great trait on any special weapon that allows you to continuously damage targets with another weapon while awaiting that holstered reload. So in my opinion, definitely worth the grind. Now we're going to compare this grenade launcher to another GL, the infamous Mountaintop. Not the same in how they do damage, but I thought I'd compare it to the most used grenade launcher in the game. So looking at the data table, you can see that both the Witherhoard and Mountaintop have the same rate of fire. Witherhoard has a slightly longer reload speed than the Mountaintop, and as I stated earlier, auto-loading is not faster than its regular reload speed. For the Witherhoard, I timed it at right under 4 seconds, but again it provides that option for sustained fire on a target with another weapon while Witherhoard is holstered. And last on the end, you can see that the Mountaintop does carry more in reserves at its base, but not by much. So let's also get into the damage stats of the blight being consumed by an enemy versus the blight damage from the pool on the ground. The base damage showcases the direct impact damage possible when hitting your target, and of course tick damage is exactly that, how much damage the target is being ticked for while within the target or while they're standing within the pool of blight. You'll also notice that each have a different tick rate per second, and this was figured by the number of ticks applied to the target divided by the total time of which the target is being damaged. And one thing to keep in mind on this data is that we're taking into account the perfect timing on everything as well as aim. So unless you're hitting directly at the foot of your target, you won't always max out your blast damage as showcased within the table. And as far as tick rate goes for each, the blight pool on the ground ticks damage at a faster rate than it does when a target consumes the blight directly. But a target will take damage for a longer period of time at 10 seconds worth of tick damage versus the 7.5 seconds that a blight pool will last on the ground. You also have to remember that with the Blightful from the Witherhoard, the enemy may be staggered while in it, but if they're a mobile major or boss, they can still walk out of it, negating further damage. So in some situations, shooting it directly into the enemy may be the way to go, as the blight damage will be ticking them from within. If we compared each option to each other with perfect firing at the end of each tick phase, this is what it would look like. Surprisingly, shooting a blight pool on the ground of your target will actually output more damage than firing it directly into your target. But remember, if it's a mobile target, they could just move out of the pool's area of effect and miss out on implementing its full damage. By firing it into the target, you always guarantee its full effect. But this graph is also considering shooting another blight immediately after the tick damage is complete. If you shoot another blight into the target while it's still ticking damage, you'll actually deal 1400% more initial impact damage. So as you saw on the initial hit with my Witherhoard, you would do 660 damage on the initial consumption. But if I fire into the target again, I'll do a massive 9,890 damage on the initial blast. So because of this, I added in 2 other scenarios to the chart showcasing a more realistic approach to how many of you will likely use the Witherhoard. One is showcasing continuous fire of the Witherhoard directly into your target after each reload, taking advantage of that boost to its initial blast damage when a target is already blighted. And the second, which you can see does the most damage, is flip-flopping back and forth between firing directly into the target and also firing at the foot of your target after each reload. So either of those 2 options are going to provide you with the most DPS output against your enemies, especially bosses within Destiny 2. And this is all just at the base reload speed, so this can all be increased significantly with something like the enhanced grenade launcher loader mod for your gauntlets. Of course, this graph wouldn't be complete if we don't bring in the Mountaintop to see how it compares with the Witherhoard. And as you can see in the chart, the Mountaintop does take the top spot in initial burst DPS, but as you continuously fire, the Witherhoard will start to outpace the Mountaintop in sustained damage. As it should, because after all, the Witherhoard is an exotic grenade launcher. But regardless, you have to remember that the Mountaintop requires a reload to continuously apply that damage. With the catalyst equipped to the Witherhoard, you can utilize 2 other weapons to stack on damage while you await the reload queue, and then just swap out and fire Witherhoard once again on your foe. And because the auto-loading is right at about 4 seconds, you'll still be able to utilize the increase in initial blast damage when firing directly at your target because the target will still be blighted. So the Witherhoard is very similar to the Anarchy in its set it and forget it approach to damage over time, instead of just the initial burst that you would get from most other weapons. But yeah, I must say I've been using the hell out of this exotic grenade launcher all season due to its versatility in the use against mobs and any boss I come across in any activity. Oh, and yes, it works well in PvP too as well, especially when closing off capture points or corners in Control or Iron Banner. But that's it for today, gamers. Now that you know how Witherhoard works and how it deals damage, I highly recommend you go acquire it if you haven't already done so and grind out the catalyst. Anyways, that's enough for me today. Hope you all have an amazing rest of your week, and if you enjoyed the intel, drop this video a like and tap fire subscribe for more on Destiny 2. Time to shine, gamers. But until next time, this is Sir Mab, signing off.